All right, can everybody hear me? All right, so hey everybody, sorry for the technical difficulties we've been having. So we're now ready to go ahead and get started. So my name is Kevin Hancock. I'm Director of Solutions here at Exostar. Thank you for coming to today's session. I'm joined by David Rowe of ISMS Solutions. And just to let you know, today we're going to be talking about Exostar's PolicyPro application. If you want to, we'd love for you to sign up for the free trial and drive it along with David today as he goes through the demonstration. You can do that via the link you see in the YouTube description. Takes just about 2 minutes to sign up. It'll be about 2 minutes before we start the formal session and David starts driving. So please do that. And we'd love to have you join us here. So before I get started, just a few housekeeping details. So today's webinar is scheduled to last 45 minutes to an hour. That does include a question and answer session. We got 3 questions submitted prior to today's sessions, and those are the ones I'll be covering during the session today. If for some reason we do have an outage, just wait for a minute and refresh the page. For your convenience, there is a link in the YouTube description to a glossary of commonly used terms, acronyms, and initializations that might be referenced during today's webinar. This webinar is being recorded. It'll be available on demand via the Exostar resource library. That can be found on our website, www.exostar.com/resources, anytime after the event. Also, you'll be able to see the recording if you reuse that YouTube link you were sent via email as well. If you'd like to speak with one of our industry experts, if you want to get a copy of this slide deck, you can reach out to us via email at cmmc-team@exostar.com. You can also use the live chat feature on any of our web pages on our website, www.exostar.com. We'd love to talk with you through that channel as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, I'm joined today by David Rowe of ISMS Solutions. David, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks, Kevin. My name is David Rowe. I am the Business Development Manager here at ISMS. Happy to show you guys the platform today, and we'll walk through a demo of everything once Kevin walks through a couple slides.
Hey, thanks, David. So as David mentioned, I'm just going to give everyone kind of an update of where we are in the CMMC journey, provide you where kind of what you need to do today to meet compliance requirements if you have DFARS clauses in your contracts or subcontracts. And then I'll turn it over to David to show you how PolicyPro works. So with CMMC rulemaking, which has been going on for a number of years currently, where we are is that the CMMC rule is published in the Federal Registry. It came out as a notice of proposed rulemaking. What that means is that it now goes through a public review period and comment period with obviously responses from the Department of Defense to those public comments. That takes approximately 280 business days. What that means is that we should start to see the CMMC rules start to show up in the DFARS clauses in your contracts early in 2025. But that doesn't mean that you can kind of just sit and wait, right? Because there are requirements that you have today. There have been rules put out in the past year that do impact your award of contracts. One of those that came out is the one you see here. It's DFARS 252.204-7024. What this clause allows for contracting officers within the DoD to do is to consider that overall SPRS score, and SPRS stands for the Supplier Performance Ranking System, or rating system, I should say. That takes into account a number of different axes, including things like risk, price risk, supplier risk assessments, etc. And part of that risk assessment is your self-assessment and submission of that score into the SPRS system when you've done that self-assessment of 800-171. And that's how you're doing against those 110 controls. if you are on a contract that requires you to protect controlled unclassified information. Those things come from clauses in your current contracts that you may have if you're a direct seller to the Department of Defense, or if you're a subcontractor to one of those that do have a direct contract. Those clauses flow down to subcontractors. So take a look at your contracts. If you have DFARS clauses 252.204-7012, 7019 or 7019, then and you receive controlled unclassified information from who you're contracting with, be that the Department of Defense or a prime who has a contract with the Department of Defense, you're required to protect that controlled unclassified information in accordance with NIST 800-171. NIST 800-171 is a list of 110 controls that you have to have in place, issued by the National Institute of Standards. That's what NIST stands for. And if you've got 7019 clauses in your contract, that requires you to do a self-assessment of how your organization is doing against those 110 controls. You say whether or not you've implemented them, how you've implemented to provide proof that you've implemented them, etc. You then mark whether or not you've implemented that control or not. And then you score yourself. There's a scoring system somewhere between 1 and -5, depending on which control it is. So you'll have a score somewhere between a -203 and 110. When you get that score, you submit that into the SPRS system using the CAGE code you should have received when you registered for that system. And that goes in, as I mentioned, in the previous slide, to a consideration of your risk when a contracting officer is looking to bid out a contract. So that's what you need to do today. Now, when CMMC comes into play, right, and I said sometime in 2025, the requirements are going to be the same, right? You're still going to have to meet those 110 controls for controlled unclassified information. But the major difference will be that now, once every 3 years, you'll have to have a third party, a C3PAO organization, certified third-party assessment organization, come in and do their assessment of how you're doing against those controls. So with that said, one of the things one of the solutions that Exostar offers in partnership with ISMS Solutions is the PolicyPro platform. This allows you to reduce the time it takes you to implement those controls by providing you those policy templates for NIST 800-171 and furthermore into CMMC 2.0. It allows you to maintain that policy library. It has an AI engine which scores those policies once you've written them. You don't have to use the templates in PolicyPro. If you've got existing policies in place, you can use that same AI engine to rate your policies or grade your policies, as you actually get a numeric score. And it'll tell you if whether or not your policies are good based on that. And then you can go forward with confidence in implementing those policies with the procedures, the checks and balances, etc., as this overall program continues and evolves into CMMC. The platform itself is a cloud-based compliant platform. It's easy to use, and you can sign up for that free trial, as I mentioned before. You'll see that link in the YouTube description. You can also come to the Exostar website and sign up for the free trial there as well. So with that, let me turn it over to David for the live demo. David, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, so PolicyPro is a tool designed to help you and your organization get compliant around those standards that Kevin just mentioned, including the NIST 800-171, as well as the CMMC version 2.0. Regardless of where your organization is in your cybersecurity journey, so whether you are just getting started and you have no idea exactly where to even begin, you can definitely start with your policies, utilizing our platform to help build you those initial policies to help you get started. Additionally, even if your organization is further along and maybe you already have all of your policies, you want to ensure that it covers everything it needs to cover within the 14 policy families as well as the 110 practices. And we'll cover both scenarios as well as anything in between. Maybe you have just a couple of policies, and so you can build the remaining policies using our policy templates and our policy builder. So that's where we'll get started. We'll start off with our policy builder tool. And as you can see here on the left-hand side, it has been updated for level 2. So we see those 14 different policy families that come directly from the NIST 800-171 requirements, starting from access control all the way down to system and information integrity. It's got all 110 practices as well. And the first time through on the platform, you'll receive this pop-up here, which is a brief explanation of policies and what they are, as well as some of the other documents your organization should already have or will need to create as you're getting ready for CMMC. Some examples of those documents include things like gap assessment, a risk register, an SSP, as well as a POAM. If you don't have any of these documents, we do provide templates to those as well. There's also a great companion product that Kevin will talk about after this demo called Certification Assistant that can help you build out these documents as well, among other things as well. But again, for today's webinar, we'll be talking primarily about policies. So once you close out of that, you'll come to our Prepare, Gather, and Consult page. Each Prepare, Gather, and Consult page is going to be unique to the policy domain, and we'll walk through an access control example here together. So this is everything you'll need to prepare prior to even getting started with the template. It'll make sure that you have all of the resources you need available in order to effectively create these policies. For example, it could include things like gathering your organization's processes, procedures, and other related documents related to these various access control topics. Additionally, it'll mention who you might need to consult with, whether they are external or internal stakeholders. For example, it could include your network administrator, head of IT, or CISO, and then any sort of outside contractors if applicable. So if you do utilize an IT consultant or an MSP or an MSSP, they would also be involved as you're writing these policies. Once you have all of that prepared, you can then click on the Get Ready Start, Get Started Now button, and that will take you to our template. All of our templates are broken out into a couple different sections. We've got the header here, which includes your organization name, the department or departments this policy falls under, the issue date for when you finalize the policy, approved by, and the tracking number. The tracking number can be utilized to keep track of the version numbers of the policy. So as you work on updating the policy, whether it's because you're updating it based on a change in your policies and your organization, or maybe the standards have been updated, you want to keep track of those policy revisions as well. Additionally, the other sections include the purpose, the scope, and the individual practices. So here in the practices is where the bulk of your work is going to be done. Again, there's 110 practices you'll work through, each one kind of divided between the 14 different policy families. Additionally, if you do need the NFO and NCO control templates as well, we do provide those as well. It's right above the practices, and you can click on the hyperlink above to go to the NFO and NCO controls as well. So each practice is broken out into a couple different parts. We've got the control identifier or practice identifier, which in this case is going to be access control 3.1.1. Next to that, you have the control ID description, so limiting information system access. And then underneath that are the guidelines. And the guidelines will help you understand exactly what you need to include within these policies, as well as guide you through the narrative as you're working through the policy templates themselves. To open up the template, you'll click on the pencil icon located on the right-hand side here, and that will bring up the policy template for 3.1.1. A couple notes as you're working through these policy templates. One, ensure that you're reading through the entirety of the policy. You want to ensure that everything written here reflects what your organization has implemented or what your organization plans on implementing in the future. Additionally, you want to make sure to pay particular attention to areas that need customization. One example of that is here in the first paragraph, where it says all account creations will be submitted by the requesting department manager to the IT support email address for completion using the account request ticketing system or other process. So there in the brackets, depending on if you're utilizing a ticketing system or if you're not, whatever other process it is you're utilizing to actually process those requests, that's what you would fill in that section there. Another section for customization here is in the second bullet, where it says systems administrators and members of the IT support team shall respond and act accordingly to requests within a timely fashion, offering at least a blank hour turnaround for account creation. So depending on how long it takes your organization to actually fill those requests and create those accounts, that's what you would fill in the parentheses there. Once you've made all of those changes, you'll then save any of those changes you've made, and that will also timestamp it as well as the user. So if you do have multiple users working on the platform, you can see exactly which sections have been changed and which ones still need to be worked on. Once you've made all of those updates, you can then export it, and that will do a couple different things. You will combine all of those sections I mentioned before, so the header, the purpose, the scope, and the individual practices into a single access control policy. It'll also save it to your local hard drive as a Word document, and that's going to be an important step for the next part of the platform, which is the policy assessment piece. Our policy assessment allows you to analyze and assess your policies very quickly in order to see exactly how your policies have done, as well as what sort of information your policies still need to include. As I mentioned earlier on in the demo, if your organization already has your policies in place, great. You just want to make sure that it includes everything it needs to include. And you can do that by uploading your existing policies into our policy assessment tool. So we'll go ahead and upload a policy here. So again, whether it's created using our policy builder or an existing policy that your organization might already have, you can upload either of those documents into the assessments and immediately receive some different metrics surrounding that particular policy. To view a detailed analysis of it, we'll click on the detailed scorecard here, and that will bring up this pop-up. The overall assessment for this particular policy is that it appears relevant in size, scope, and organizational customization. The overall assessment is comprised of 3 different key metrics. We've got the relevance, which is how many key terms or phrases are included in your policy. The higher that is, the higher the overall assessment is going to be. The model similarity compares the policy you've uploaded to our model documents, and we do that for 2 reasons. One, to ensure that it's been appropriately customized to fit your organization, and another reason to ensure that it covers everything it needs to cover. Finally, the word count is simply ensuring that we have enough context surrounding those key terms or phrases. So if it's too short, it might not accurately reflect how your policy is done. So you can either increase the length or just understand that it might not be nearly as accurate since we don't have enough context. The overall score here for this policy was 70.7%. A note about the overall scoring as you're working through your own policies is that it is not like an academic score, meaning 90% is an A, 80% is a B, etc. The overall scoring in our platform is a relevance and thresholds scoring system, meaning anything above a 50% is a relevant document, and we'll talk further on in the demo about how you can utilize the overall score. Those are the kind of high-level overall metrics of how my policy is done, but we also provide some granular feedback as well in terms of exactly what you're missing and how you can use that information to improve your policies. We do that through the key elements not included, or KENNY for short, and we have two different types of KENNYs, the control KENNYs and the general KENNYs. The control KENNY here, for example, the first one, CUI, non-public information, that's that key term or phrase that's missing in my policy that I should be looking to include. Underneath that, we also provide the actual control that it's referenced under, which is the 3.1.22, controlling information posted or processed on publicly accessible information systems. Underneath that is the discussion. So again, today's example is under CMMC version 2, level 2. And so this discussion comes directly from the CMMC/NIST 800-171 framework. The documents for examination are going to be other sorts of documents, records, or materials that your organization might already have that can help assist you as you're rewriting your policies. For example, it could include things like a security plan or a list of users authorized to post publicly accessible content. Again, just any sort of document that can help address that particular control KENNY. Certain control KENNYs, for example, FIPS here, are going to be tied to multiple controls. In this case, it's tied to 3.1.13 as well as 3.1.17. So in the case of FIPS, you want to make sure that you're addressing it in each control that it's referenced under. The general policy KENNY terms are very similar in the sense that there are also key terms and phrases that are missing in my policy. However, it does not have this collapse all, expand all button. And the reason for that is these are not terms specific to a particular control. They might be more generic to an access control policy or not specifically addressed within the standard itself. You want to make sure to take a look at both the control KENNYs and the general KENNYs and ensure that everything is covered adequately within your policies. You can also export it into a PDF as well if you want to keep it on your local hard drive, the results, or maybe you want to share it via PDF as well with other people in your organization. One last feature I want to talk about here in the policy assessment piece is this management approval. So I'll go ahead and click that management approved and discuss it further in our dashboard. So the dashboard is where you'll come to see all your progress and work throughout the platform, whether you are building policies or assessing and uploading your policies. You'll see all of that work here in our dashboard. As we scroll down, we can see our latest management approved policy. So this is my most up-to-date policy that has been approved. So it's a great way to keep track whether you are doing internal or even external audits to show that you are indeed periodically updating your policies, you are updating your policies based on updates to the standard, and you can see exactly who and when they approved it by. So it gives you that nice auditing trail to ensure that policies have been appropriately updated on time as well. You'll also see all of those different metrics I mentioned earlier, including the KENNYs as well as the overall score. So as you're working on updating and revising your policies based on the KENNY results, you'll see those KENNYs going lower and your overall score going upwards. So as long as that score is above a 50% and you're seeing improvements in the KENNY and the overall score, you know you're on the right path to ensure that your policies are covering everything it needs to cover. Additionally, we also provide a reference library. So this is where you can come to whether you are creating policies or assessing your policies and updating them. If you have any other, or if you need some additional guidance and some additional information about a particular topic, you can come to the reference library, select the appropriate links. Most of these link directly to the NIST Institute, And for example, let's say you had a control kennedy related to mobile devices or VPNs, and you're unsure how to address that in your policy, you can come to the reference library for some additional information. Again, everything I showed you today was for level 2. However, it's easy to swap to the level 1. So maybe you don't have those DFARS clauses, or you're not handling, transmitting, or processing any CUI. And so you're going to go for that level 1. That includes the 6 different policy families and the 17 practices associated with it. And at any time in the future, maybe you want to go for a contract that does include CUI. You can then click on that level 2, swap over, and work on the remaining 14 policies. Hopefully that's been a good overview of how to utilize the platform. Again, there is a free trial available. If you did a free trial in the past and you've expired, definitely feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to extend your time to take another look at the platform. Thank you so much for taking a look, and I will turn it over to Kevin now.
Great, thanks so much, David.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah. All right, everybody, thanks. So just wanted to, so as David mentioned, the PolicyPro is part of Exostar's CMMC Ready suite. That suite includes not only PolicyPro that David covered today, it also covers Certification Assistant. Certification Assistant is an application that allows you to walk through that NIST 800-171 self-assessment. It guides you through that process. It provides you a place to centralize all your information, so you can put in that policy library that you've created in PolicyPro. You can put together those different procedures that you have on how you've implemented each of these controls. You can then link to the evidence of how you've implemented those controls. For those controls that require periodic evaluation, reviews, etc., you can put in those tasks to do those. And then obviously, if you haven't actually completed a particular control, you can open a POAM, right? That plan of action and milestones to go ahead and address that issue and keep track of your closing of that particular POAM, also in Certification Assistant. We also, if you need a secure enclave to store, process, and transmit controlled unclassified information that you may receive as part of a contract, Exostar as a solution or managed Microsoft 365 for both large enterprises and the small and medium-sized business. This provides you a secure Teams enclave up in Microsoft's Azure GCC High. It has an Exostar application embedded within it, which governs the use of that enclave, creates those roles that allow it so only those people who are invited into the tenant can work on that information, can see the information, allows you to create those private teams so not everybody sees everything, etc. And provides those additional support that you need to work on, out of the box, it provides 85 of those 110 controls on the NIST 800. So as long as that CUI stays within the enclave, you've got 85 of those 110 controls covered by Exostar, and you really only need to worry about those 25 additional ones, like who gets roles, how do you determine who has access, etc. If you're working toward that assessment, and you want someone to help you out, or you want to have a third party come in and see how you're doing, Exostar has a number of partnerships with MSPs and MSSPs that we can engage you with to do that assessment of where you are today, what you need to do. If you're having a particular problem and trying to address a particular control, they can help you out that way as well. Just to remind everybody, we do have an exit poll. We'd love to get your participation in this. This lets us know how we did today. Also asks additional topics that you might like to see addressed in our other webinars. This is one of 4 webinars that we do on both a weekly and a monthly basis. One is a general CMMC webinar. One is on PolicyPro, as you saw today. One is on Certification Assistant. And then we do a weekly webinar on our Microsoft Managed 365 or Managed Microsoft 365, sorry about that, where we do a demonstration and answer questions about that product on a weekly basis as well. As I mentioned, we did get 3 questions prior to today's webinar. They're not specifically about PolicyPro, so I'm going to address these rather than turn them over to David. So one of those questions, how do we use Exostar's Microsoft GCC High Web Tenant? I'm not really going to tell you about that today, but just let you know we do that webinar or that workshop, if you will, on a weekly basis. So every Thursday at 2 o'clock, we do a demonstration and answer questions about this particular solution. You can sign up for that on our website. The person who submitted this, I did send you a link to where to sign up for that. So would love to have you attend that as well to get some information about that solution. Number 2, when CMMC becomes official, what version of NIST 800-171 will it be using? To tell you the truth, I don't know yet. So currently, just to let everybody know, NIST 800-171 is going through its 3rd revision, right? The one that is currently being enforced is Rev 2. The one that's currently in draft form, and it's on the 2nd draft, is Rev 3. It's expected that Rev 3 will be finalized in either Q1 or Q2 of 2024. There will also then be an implementation period that would be determined by the Department of Defense, right? NIST and the DoD are separate government agencies. So once NIST, moves to Rev 3, it says it's finalized, then DoD will determine when that would be implemented into contracts and have that, if you will, that period of transition also defined. So not sure yet when that will actually be, but stay tuned. We'll obviously be talking about that in the next, early next year to get you ready for that change. 3rd question is also very general and one I don't have a great answer to. Is there any way to engage customers about discussing solutions prior to a bid release? And this is one of those, there is no formal way, right? There's no formal way of determining what kind of solutions or what kind of particular things the government might be putting out to bid. The only thing I can suggest is to, those agencies you're currently working with, those relationships you have, ask them what problems they're looking to solve, find out if they're considering putting that budget line in, etc. That'll at least give you an idea of what might be coming. Obviously, this is all going to depend on the relationship you have with your customers, but there is no formal one-stop shop that says, hey, these are all the things that people are looking to do. Here's a point of contact to talk about that, etc. I work with a sales organization extremely closely. I understand your frustration, but don't have a great answer for you on that one. So with that concludes our session today, but did want to let you know we have a number of upcoming events and other resources that are available for you on these topics. As I mentioned before, there is a free trial for both PolicyPro and Certification Assistant. You can sign up those free trials, see if they work for you on our website. You'll also be able to get the links from this slide presentation as well. Once again, if you could take a minute to fill out that exit poll, we'd really appreciate it. But want to thank everybody for joining us today. Want to thank David for his time in presenting. So everyone have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.